Welcome, Freedom Fighter 1776. I'm your host, Mark Bashaw. We've got quite the show today. Quite the show. And first, I want to start it off with this clip from the Secretary of Defense. Let's add this up here. Secretary of Defense yesterday posted this. Take a listen, folks.
We're back with more changes at DoD, and this time an update on COVID-19 and reinstatement. We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it. We're doing everything we can, as quickly as we can, to reinstate those who were affected by that policy. It hasn't been perfect, and we know that. We're having an ongoing conversation with you to get it right, working with the White House as well. We want anyone impacted by that vaccine mandate back into the military, people of conscience, warriors of conscience, back in our formations. We hear you. And we're working to get updated guidance as quickly as possible. So kind of here's where we are on more guidance we're providing right now. So in January, the president issued his executive order. We jumped right on it. In February, I directed the department to take corrective action regarding this specific department's unfair, overbroad, unnecessary COVID vaccine mandate. You know, we apologized then, apologize now for how it was done, and we want to fix it. So today, I'm signing a memorandum that directs the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness to provide additional guidance to the boards that are reviewing these cases concerning the review of requests from service members and former service members adversely impacted by COVID-19 vaccine mandate. The guidance also will facilitate the removal of adverse actions on service members solely for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine, including discharge upgrades, and less than fully honorable discharges for individuals separated for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine. So we're trying to scrub all that, clean all that up. We'll also facilitate appropriate remedies for service members who have suffered additional career setbacks resulting from the previous administration's unlawful vaccine mandate. So that original EO addresses the unfair, since rescinded COVID-19 vaccine mandate imposed on warfighters during the previous administration. We know how bad it was. You know how bad it was. And through this guidance, which I encourage you to check it all out directly, because it's an update going even further than what we've done in the past, this memo is providing supplemental remedies for service members and veterans negatively impacted by the DoD defunct COVID-19 disease vaccine mandate. So more guidance here that we think is really important in getting this right. And we welcome you all back as quickly as possible.
Well, there you have it. There you have it, folks. Unlawful, illegal, immoral, unethical, everything you could possibly think of wrong about these weaponized mandates upon the force. But here's the thing. Most of us, service members, who were doing what we were supposed to be doing, and that's effectively communicating with our chain of commands knew this. They were well aware of this. The JAGs were well aware of this. They knew this was unlawful. They knew this was illegal. They knew this was immoral, unethical, right? They even knew it was injuring and maiming and killing service members. They knew all this. They've known it for years. How did they know? Service members like myself, we submitted protected communications to our chain of command, warning our chain of command that this was happening. You are about to violate the law. You're about to violate federal law. And oh, by the way, as a medical officer myself at the Army Public Health Center, it was my job to inform the medical leadership that, hey, your risk communication strategy is not accurate. You're not including the VAERS data to these risk communication strategies. This is propaganda. You should probably warn service members that if they choose to participate with these experimental products, just like the Secretary of Defense just said, there's a possibility that they could be maimed, injured, or killed. And what happened? What happened to me after I did that? Well, I'll tell you what happened to me after I did that. After I submitted this right here, I'm going to share this right now. This is what happened. You must give service members the option to accept or refuse administration of these emergency use authorized products. Title 21. We can't see it. It's too small. Again, reiterates the fact that you must give service members, you must give them the option to accept or refuse these products. Why? Because they're experimental. They were experimental. The masking, the testing, the injections, they were all experimental. Not even vaccines. Don't even meet the definitions. The Department of Defense's own definition for vaccine doesn't meet it. Look it up. Experimental. And then they went on to weaponize it. And how did they weaponize it? You know this from the public. If you're a school teacher, if you're a police officer, fireman, a public servant, or even a corporate businessman, you know this. Job or jab. Job or jab. But it wasn't just job or jab. It was job or experimental jab. Job or dangerous and deadly jab. Right? And so if you stood up, and this doesn't just apply to service members, if you stood up and started communicating the fact that your corporation, your school district, your police station was violating the law, what happened to you? I can almost guarantee I know what happened to you. Because it happened to me. It happened to thousands of other service members. This isn't just about service members. This is about a experimental weaponization on humanity, right? But again, what happened? What happened after I submitted this protected communication? Well, I'll show you what happened. This was the protected communication I submitted in November 2021. I said to my chain of command, and I informed them multiple times in writing, verbally, in email, and it got to the point where I had to submit. Let me share this real quick. I had to submit this. Article 138. Why? Because they weren't listening. They weren't heeding the warnings. So I filed the Article 138, Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's a formal complaint for service members. It's a service member's ability to use the chain of command to bring up grievances, redress grievances, and get the chain of command to work with you. What did I submit? Cease and desist all discrimination against me and other individuals of firmly held religious beliefs and strong convictions against SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 EUA injections, right? Quote unquote vaccinations, mRNA gene therapy experiments, EUA testing products, EUA mass and or vaccination products in general. Cease and desist unauthorized distribution of my personal medical information and anyone else's under your chain of command. Why? Why would I say this? Because they were using discriminatory weaponized products to disclose our medical status. How did they do it? Weaponized masking, weaponized testing, only for the quote unquote unvaccinated, right? Rescind the order to conduct COVID-19 EUA testing until such a time that there is available DoD source supply, FDA approved and licensed COVID-19 tests for all personnel who provide informed consent to participate with such testing. Elevate this information to the DoD and the U.S. Army leadership, military and civilian, that the leadership publishes clarification that there are no FDA approved and licensed COVID-19 products, quote unquote vaccines, masks, and tests at this time. DoD, DHA, Army MedCom, Army Public Health Center, and commanders update risk communication strategies for the EUA COVID-19 injections to include death and other severe adverse side effects and transparently communicate the message for the widest possible dissemination. Why? Because we had the VAERS database. We had the information showing death and injury were occurring from these injections. Remove the flag of my personal record, right? Because at this time, they banned me from all Army Public Health Center facilities, flagged my record, restricted my security access, my security clearance. And then, after I filed this Article 138, threatened me with Leavenworth imprisonment and charged me with Article 92, failure to obey a lawful order. It wasn't lawful. Coordinate with Army Public Health Centers Director to reinstate my security clearance. Inform all personnel under your command of the EUA laws. Ensure personnel are aware of FDA-approved Pfizer Comirnaty vaccines and the Pfizer EUA BioNTech vaccines are not interchangeable. And who just got fired from the CIA? Oh, that's right. Dr. Terry Aderam got fired from the CIA. Why? I don't know. Maybe there's more to it, but the surface level why for me is the fact that she weaponized interchangeability memo against the entire force. So commanders would then wave that in front of your face when you brought this important point to their awareness. They would say, oh, well, Terry Aderam says it's interchangeable. No, that's not legal. That's not lawful. And then what happened to me? On 18 January 2022, Colonel Yevgeny Vindman, that name might sound familiar, fired from Trump White House, right? For the fake impeachment hoax, number 2, the perfect call with Ukraine, him and his brother, right? Fired from the Trump White House, goes and gets promoted in the Biden foreign belligerent occupying regime, right? Gets promoted and then gets sent to be the staff judge advocate for Major General Edmondson at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, which happened to be my administrative chain of command. And he would sign off on bringing me to a court-martial. And what did he do after he brought me to a court-martial? What did he do? I'll show you. This is what he did. Prosecuted me in a kangaroo court and then went on his social media account on the day I was prosecuted as a full bird colonel at the time and brags to the world about how he was proud of the prosecution team at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, secured first in the nation conviction at a court-martial of lieutenant who failed to obey lawful orders regarding COVID-19 mitigation measures. They weren't lawful. He knew this. He had the information. He had the federal statutes. He had all this. He had the dangerous and deadly data that I pushed up to my chain of command. He had all that. And what did he do? Bragged about it to the world. Bragged about it to the world. And what's he doing now, you might ask? District 7, Virginia, House of Representatives, elected. Sits on the House Armed Services Committee. That's who sits on the House Armed Services Committee, a foreign belligerent infiltrator that has no regard for the laws of this nation and our Constitution. That's who sits on the Armed Forces Committee, House of Representatives, District 7, Virginia. Right? So our Secretary of Defense, your Secretary of Defense, and when I say you, I'm talking to the criminals that still lie, the infiltrators that still lie within the chain of command, the criminals. I'm talking about the ones who knowingly received the protected communications from service members showing that it was an illegal, unlawful, immoral, unethical order to force participation with emergency use authorized injections, masking, and testing. Right? Because that's what this covers. Emergency use products. And so what we have is a bunch of infiltrators now listening to their Secretary of Defense yesterday call them criminals because they executed not only that, they knowingly violated the law. I'm not talking about the service members who unknowingly, blindly followed and carried out unlawful orders. I'm talking about the service members, the officers, because the chain of command is a two-way street. You have a responsibility. If you're in a chain of command, you're receiving unlawful orders or something that's not right, you have a responsibility to communicate with your chain of command. communicate that information up your chain of command. Right? Ethical orders, right here, chapter 2. Army publication doctrine, ethical orders. Situations in which any Army member thinks an order is unlawful can be most difficult. Yes, it sure can. Unlawful orders are the exception. A leader has a duty to question such orders and refuse to obey them if clarification of the order's intent fails to resolve objections. If a service member perceives an order is unlawful, the service member should fully understand the order's details and original intent. The soldier should seek immediate clarification from the person who issued the order before proceeding. Chances are, when a soldier disobeys what may be an unlawful order, it may be the most courageous decision they make. The soldier's rules codify the law of war and outline ethical and lawful conduct in operations. They distill the essence of the law of war, the Army values, and inform ethical conduct. It's a service member's duty. It's a service member's duty to inform their chain of command if there's issues with the orders. So for a service member not to do that in this point in time and then bitch about the officer who carried out these unlawful orders, sorry, you have no grounds to stand on. I apologize. You just don't. But if you're a service member out there and you submitted protected communications to your chain of command, like in Article 138, like a religious accommodation showing the religious violations, the unlawfulness of the orders with the experimental emergency use authorized product, with the federal statutes, or even the specific and substantial dangers to public health and safety, like the VAERS data or the DMED data, and you submitted that formally to your chain of command, those officers knowingly broke the law and then retaliated against you. And so what do we have? We have criminal infiltrators currently right now in the Department of Defense. No accountability. No accountability. Walking around, criminals walking around within the chain of commands. Many of them promoted. Many of them rewarded. Many of them rewarded. And what do I mean by rewarded? What do I mean by rewarded? Well, let's check this out. Lieutenant Colonel receives a meritorious service medal during her time as commander of an intelligence surveillance reconnaissance group, right? And part of it is, finally, she led the squadron through an unprecedented global pandemic. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. Pandemic. Implementing the Department of Defense coronavirus vaccination mandate, counseling 80 vaccine hesitant airmen to achieve a 99% vaccination rate. So what did she do? She coerced 80 service members who had conscience and reservations about receiving an experimental injection. She counseled them and coerced them into receiving it so she could receive a 99% rate on her unit readiness, and then gets rewarded for it. And oh, by the way, this was a lieutenant colonel at the time. Now we're full bird colonel, criminal walking around within the chain of commands. That's just one example. One example of the many officers who knowingly, that's the key term here, knowingly violated the law. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I went to a court martial for not violating any law. I didn't even violate a military regulation. I was doing my job as an Army Public Health Center public health officer, a medical entomologist, communicating properly, professionally, per the regulation to my chain of command. I get sent to a court martial I get threatened with Leavenworth imprisonment. I get called an insider threat after I submitted specific dangers to public health and safety to a federal court, specifically the DMED data, to a federal court, showing the alarming signals, danger signals about these injections. I get called an insider threat. I get banned from all Army Public Health Center facilities for 413 days. I get weaponized behavioral health appointments against me, escorted to behavioral health. I get dragged through the mud. And if you saw the first opening video, the first opening little, I don't know, intro to this podcast, where it's the picture of the Army Times saying, officer court-martialed for mask. Well, guess what? That's not accurate at all. And that was released without my opportunity to even comment on the article. Oh, yes, the prosecutor, Yevgeny Vindman, reached out to Army Times and pushed the story to his boy Winky. Maybe his boy, maybe not. Maybe they got a relationship, maybe not. I know Winky's was military too. He knew it was unlawful, illegal, immoral. Why? Because service members were trying to cover the story, the actual story. But did he cover the story of my situation? No. They just ran a story, refused to contact my attorney and get my side of the situation on what was really going on, and ran with it. I get dragged through the mud. I get treated like a criminal for doing my job, for doing my duty, for carrying out the oath, my oath to the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. So what do we have here? We have a foreign belligerent infiltration within our ranks. We've got individuals who are foreign to the laws and orders of this nation. They're foreign to their own oaths of office. And they're walking around right now, being promoted. Some of them getting fired from wing command ship. Right? You saw that commander over in Greenland getting fired because she was undermining the duly elected administration, right? That's where we are, folks. This point in time right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I did file a package. I did request reinstatement. I did submit all my evidence to the Army Board of Military Corrections. You want to know what happened? The binders disappeared. Still don't have a case number. So I get the receipt back saying they were delivered. No contents in box, meaning the contents were gone from the box. What did I do? I submitted another one. Still no case number from the Army Board of Military Corrections. And what do they have? They have all the evidence. They have all the names of my entire chain of command who violated federal law, who violated military regulations, medical officer who ignored immense safety signals, and also violated the law. That's what they have. So the ball's in their court. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? We shall see. Anyway, God bless. Much love, folks. Catch you on the next episode.